They told me I didn't belong here anymore, that I should pack my bags and leave just like that. My own son, the one I raised, looked me in the eye and said, "Mom, you need to go. This house isn't yours." I remember feeling the world stop spinning for a moment. How could the people I loved most suddenly turn on me like this? It all began that rainy afternoon when my daughter-in-law stood by the door with a cold smile, folding her arms. "You've overstayed your welcome," she said sharply. My heart sank, but I held my ground. This was the house I'd lived in for decades. This was where my memories, my life, were rooted. I never expected betrayal to come dressed so casually, a whispered suggestion from my son, a cold glance from the daughter-in-law, a lawyer's letter that I was pressured to sign without reading. They said it was for legal housekeeping, but I knew better. My family, the people I'd trusted, began acting differently. Invitations stopped. Conversations became sharp and forced. Slowly, I was pushed to the edge, as if I was a stranger in my own home. I remember the exact moment I realized they were planning something much worse than just cold shoulders. It was when my son handed me documents that would hand over my house, my security, my inheritance, all to them. They told me to sign. "It's easier this way," they said, but I saw the greed in their eyes. That night, I sat alone in the quiet house, clutching those papers, wondering how I'd been so blind. I knew then that if I didn't fight back, I would lose everything, not just a house, but my dignity, my voice, and the family I thought I had. They told me I shouldn't travel, that I was too old, that I should stay quiet and accept what was coming. But they didn't know me, so I made a decision, one that would shock them all. I flew first class around the world, not to run away, but to find the strength and clarity I desperately needed. And this is my story, a story of betrayal, heartbreak, and finally, reclaiming what's mine. When I look back now, I can still picture everyone clearly, the people who surrounded me in that house, the people who would soon become the source of my deepest pain. My family was never perfect, but I never expected the ones closest to me would betray me. There's my son, Armin. He was always my pride and joy, a quiet, thoughtful man who once held his mother's hand like I was his whole world. But over the years, something changed. He started to listen more to his wife than to me, and I noticed that once warm gaze grow colder, more distant. Then there's Zara, my daughter-in-law. She's sharp, ambitious, and fiercely protective of her own interests. At first, I thought she was just a little strong-willed, the kind of woman who knows what she wants. But soon, I saw how her smiles masked calculations, how her polite words hid contempt, the way she looked at me sometimes, like I was a nuisance in her perfectly arranged life. Armin's parents-in-law, especially Zara's mother, were equally involved. They visited often, but never with kindness. I caught their judging eyes, heard their thinly veiled comments about how I should just let go of things that didn't belong to me anymore. I was no longer a matriarch, I was a burden, as they implied behind closed doors. And then there was Rafik, the family lawyer, someone I had trusted to guide me through the legal matters of my late husband's estate. But even he was a part of this tangled web, always busy, always handling paperwork that somehow seemed to favor the others. I also had a few friends, old, loyal, and kind-hearted people who warned me that not everything was as it seemed. But how do you prepare yourself when the ones you love turn against you? As tensions rose, the house that once felt like a sanctuary became a battlefield. Cold greetings replaced warm embraces. Secret meetings happened behind my back. I was pushed, bit by bit, to the edge of losing my home, my rights, my dignity. And then came the day when the first big demand was made. I was handed papers I was supposed to sign. Papers that felt like chains, locking me out of the life I'd built. That's when I realized this wasn't just family squabble. It was a carefully planned betrayal, but I wasn't ready to give up just yet, not without a fight. At first, the signs were small, almost easy to miss if I hadn't been paying close attention. A sharp word here, a cold glance there, but each one cut deeper than the last, like a slow drip of poison. It started with the way Armin and Zara began excluding me from family plans. Birthdays, dinners, even simple conversations. I was no longer part of their world. Instead of warm smiles, I was met with silence or hurried excuses. One evening, I overheard Zara on the phone, her voice low but sharp. We need to move quickly. She's starting to suspect something. My heart sank. They were planning something, and I was caught in the middle, unaware of how deep this betrayal would go. Then came the day that changed everything. Rafik, the lawyer, arrived at the house with a briefcase and a serious expression. He sat me down and said, "There are some papers regarding your property and estate that need your signature." His tone was calm, but there was an edge I couldn't ignore. He explained it was routine, just formalizing some legal housekeeping, but I could feel the tension in the room. Armin was there too, watching me closely, his eyes unreadable. When I asked for time to read the documents, they brushed me off. "It's all standard," Zara said quickly. "Just sign it, please. It'll be easier for everyone." But I wasn't convinced. Something about the whole thing felt wrong. I wanted to ask questions, to understand what I was signing away. But the more I tried, the more I was told to trust them, that they were only trying to help. That night, alone with those papers, I felt a storm brewing inside me. I knew this was just the beginning. They were trying to take control not just of my property, but of my life. The betrayal wasn't just about money or land. It was about trust, a trust I thought we shared, broken piece by piece. And yet, I still didn't know the full extent of their plan. What they had hidden from me was far worse than I ever imagined. The days after that first meeting with Rafik felt like walking through a fog. Every time I tried to find clarity, the fog thickened. They kept pushing softly at first, then with more insistence that I should sign those papers. "It's for your own good," they said, like rehearsed lines. Armin stopped visiting so often. When he did, his eyes avoided mine, as if he was ashamed or afraid. Zara's smiles were tighter, her words clipped and sharper than before. It was clear they were working together, and I was the obstacle standing in their way. One afternoon, Zara cornered me in the kitchen. "Mom," she said sweetly, but I could hear the steel beneath her voice, "you really should think about signing those papers. It'll make everything easier. We just want to protect you. Protect me." I wanted to laugh, but the pain was too raw. How could the people who promised to love me call this protection? Even Rafik grew impatient. "You're holding things up," he said one afternoon, glancing at his watch as if I were wasting his time. "If you don't sign, this could drag on for months, and no one wants that." But what choice did I have? If I didn't sign, would they try to force me out? Would I lose everything overnight? I reached out to a few old friends, hoping for advice or support. Some warned me that this wasn't just about property, but about cutting me out completely. Others encouraged me to stand firm to fight. I wanted to believe that my son, at least, would have my back. But the truth was heartbreaking. Armin was torn, caught between loyalty to me and the woman who had slowly taken over his life. One evening, I caught them whispering in hushed tones just outside my door. "She's getting suspicious," Zara said sharply. "We need to move faster." The moment I realized this wasn't just a family disagreement, it was a plan, a carefully executed scheme to take everything from me, my heart shattered. But I wasn't ready to give up, not yet. I was determined to find out the truth. The most painful part wasn't the pressure to sign papers, it was the lies they told me about my late husband's will. For years I had trusted that the property and savings were safe, that my family would honor my husband's wishes. But suddenly, everything I believed started to crumble. Zara began dropping hints that the will wasn't in my favor, that it had been changed, that I might not inherit what I thought I would. When I confronted Armin, his answers were vague and evasive. "Mom, it's complicated. You should trust us," he said, but the hesitation in his voice said otherwise. I tried to reach the lawyer, Rafik, for clarity, but each conversation felt like walking into a maze. He spoke in legal jargon, making things more confusing than clear. Once, when I asked directly if the will had changed, he dodged the question, then quickly ended the call. Rumors started to swirl. Friends whispered about secret meetings, about documents being forged. I felt isolated, like everyone was keeping secrets from me, and the people I loved the most were the ones hiding the deepest lies. Late at night, I would sit alone, clutching the worn photo of my husband, asking myself how this had happened. How could the family I built betray me so completely? I began to suspect that the will I thought I knew didn't tell the full story, that someone had hidden another version, a secret will that changed everything. Determined to uncover the truth, I asked my closest friend to help me reach out to the law firm directly to get any records or documents I was entitled to see. But even then, obstacles appeared, claims that certain files were missing or lost. The more I dug, the more tangled the web became. And then, one afternoon, I received an unexpected letter from a different lawyer, someone who had been handling matters quietly, away from everyone's knowledge. The letter hinted at a secret will, one that could change everything. But before I could read it fully, Zara called, her voice tight and sharp. "You shouldn't open that letter," she warned. "Some things are better left alone." I felt a chill run down my spine. The game was far from over, and now the stakes were higher than ever. That letter was the spark I needed, but I couldn't act openly. Zara was watching my every move, and Armin was slipping further away. So I arranged a secret meeting with the lawyer who sent the letter, a man named Mr. Khalid. He wasn't the familiar face I'd dealt with before. He was quieter, more serious, and seemed to carry a weight of truth on his shoulders. We met at a small cafe, tucked away from the busy streets. I remember gripping my cup of tea, my heart pounding, as I asked him about the letter and the secret will. His eyes softened with understanding. "There is indeed a second will," he said carefully. "It was drafted after your husband's passing, under very unusual circumstances." He explained that this will named me as the rightful heir to not only the house but a substantial portion of the estate, including some hidden assets my family had never told me about. But the existence of this will had been kept under wraps, buried in legal limbo. "Your son and his wife have been working to keep this will from coming to light," Mr. Khalid said quietly. "They hope to claim the entire estate for themselves." Hearing this was like a punch to the gut. My own son, working against me, the thought was unbearable. Mr. Khalid warned me to be cautious. The other side had powerful allies and plenty of money to drag things out in court. But he promised to help me fight, to bring the truth into the light. As we spoke, I felt a mix of fear and hope. For the first time in months, I saw a way out, a chance to reclaim what was mine. But just as I was beginning to breathe a little easier, my phone buzzed. A message from Zara. "You don't know what you're getting into. Stop digging before it's too late." The words were a threat, clear as day. I was standing at the edge of a cliff. One step forward could mean freedom, but it could also mean falling into a deeper trap. The day I finally held the secret will in my hands is etched into my memory like a scar I can never forget. It was a gray afternoon, the kind where the sky looks heavy with secrets. Mr. Khalid met me at his office, a quiet place filled with old books and the faint smell of leather. He placed a sealed envelope on the desk, his eyes locked on mine. "This is it," he said softly. "The will your family didn't want you to see." My hands trembled as I broke the seal. The paper felt heavier than any weight I'd ever carried, heavier than the years of betrayal and silence. As I read through the pages, my heart raced. My late husband had left everything to me. The house, the land, the savings, even a small cottage tucked away that no one else knew about. This wasn't just a piece of paper. It was proof of my right, my place, my dignity. Tears blurred my vision. I wanted to scream, to shout, to run to my son and show him what he had tried to hide. But the pain was too fresh. How could he, the boy I raised, turn against me like this? "Mr. Khalid watched silently. "This will was drafted after your husband passed, witnessed by trusted friends. It overrides previous documents, but why hide it?" I whispered. "Because once the others found out, they panicked. They started the campaign to pressure you into signing away your rights. This will threatens everything they hope to claim." I sat back, the weight of the truth settling in. This was my moment, the turning point. But I also knew that revealing this will would ignite a firestorm. The family wouldn't go quietly. And as if on cue, my phone lit up with a message from Armin. "Mom, we need to talk. Things have gotten out of hand." Was it remorse? Or something worse? I had the proof. I had the power. But the hardest part was yet to come. The secret will was just the beginning. With it came a question that haunted me every waking moment. Who really owned the house I had called home for so many years? I decided to get copies of the property deeds from the local registry. I knew this was the one place I couldn't be lied to. Everything was on paper, official, permanent. What I found shocked me to my core. The deed to the house wasn't in my name. It hadn't been for years. Instead, it was under Armin's name, or rather, jointly held with Zara. The documents showed that just months after my husband passed, the ownership had quietly shifted. There was no mention of me anywhere. I felt like the ground had been pulled from beneath me. How could they have done this without telling me, without my consent? How many late nights had they spent planning this, hiding it from the one person it hurt the most? I confronted Armin the next time he came over, voice trembling but eyes burning with the hurt I couldn't hide. Why did you do this? Why take the house without telling me? He looked away, silent for a long moment. Then he said something that cut deeper than any lie. Mom, it's for the best. You don't understand the risks. We're protecting the family. Protecting the family from whom? From me? Zara's cold voice interrupted. You don't belong here anymore. This isn't your fight. Their words were like daggers. They were trying to erase me not just from the house, but from my own life. But the secret will was my shield. I wasn't going to let them erase me so easily. With the deeds in my hand and the will as my proof, I realized the battle had entered a new phase. They had tried to rewrite my story. Now it was time for me to write it back on my own terms. But little did I know, their next move was waiting something that would test me more than anything before. Just when I thought I had a handle on everything, another shock hit me like a thunderbolt. One morning, I found a letter slipped under my door. No name, no return address, just an envelope with my name scrawled in hurried handwriting. Inside was a typed note from an anonymous source, claiming to have information that could change everything. It said there was a second, even older will, one that predated the secret will Mr. College showed me. This older will supposedly named my son and daughter-in-law as sole heirs, but that document was forged, fake. The letter warned me that if I didn't act fast, those forged papers would be used in court to override the secret will. It was a desperate move, a final attempt to erase me once and for all. I couldn't believe it. More lies, more deception. The family's greed ran deeper than I had imagined. I took the letter straight to Mr. Khalid. He looked grim as he read it. This changes everything, he said. If those forgeries surface, it could ruin your case. We have to move quickly. I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare that refused to end. Every time I thought I saw the light, another shadow crept in, but I refused to back down. If they thought I was weak, they were wrong. I had been pushed to the edge, and now I was ready to fight with everything I had. That's when the calls started. Threats, warnings, even attempts to intimidate me through friends and neighbors. And then the worst happened. Armin came to the house, tears in his eyes, begging me to drop everything. Mom, please, he said. This is tearing the family apart. I looked at him, my son, and felt my heart break all over again. Could I forgive him? Could I let this betrayal go? Or was it finally time to stand my ground and take back what was rightfully mine? The moment I made the decision to reclaim my home, everything changed. I hired a locksmith, someone I trusted completely, and had the locks changed quietly, late at night. When the new keys slid into my hand, I felt a surge of power I hadn't felt in months. This was my house, my sanctuary, and no one was going to take it away from me. The next morning I woke to chaos. Armin and Zara showed up at the front door, their faces twisted in shock and anger. They banged on the door, shouted my name, begged to be let in. Mom, what are you doing? This isn't right. Armin pleaded, but I stood firm. This is my home. I told them, my voice steady, and until this is settled, I control who enters. Zara's eyes flashed with fury. You're tearing this family apart, she spat. You're being selfish. I looked at her and said, respect isn't selfish, it's what I've earned. Neighbors gathered, whispering as they watched the scene unfold. Some shook their heads, others offered quiet support. I wasn't alone. Inside, I felt a mix of relief and fear. Relief that I had taken back control, fear of what might come next. Would they escalate? Would this tear the family beyond repair? That night, I sat by the window, listening to the silence of my reclaimed home. The battle wasn't over, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had the upper hand. And then my phone rang. It was an unexpected call, someone from my past offering help. Someone I never thought would stand by me now. But could I trust them? Reclaiming my home was supposed to bring peace, but instead, It opened a floodgate of emotions, anger, hurt, and betrayal spilling out from every corner. Armin's visits stopped almost immediately. When he did come by, his eyes were heavy with guilt, but his words were sharp and defensive. "You don't understand what we're trying to do," he told me once, but I could see the conflict behind his eyes. Zara, on the other hand, was relentless. She spread rumors in the neighborhood, painting me as a selfish, unstable woman tearing apart a family. It hurt, but I refused to sink to her level. Then came a moment that shook me more than any argument, a quiet confession from Armin, away from the chaos, where his walls finally crumbled. He told me how Zara had manipulated him, how she'd pushed him to betray me for her own gain. Hearing him admit it was like hearing the truth for the first time in months. It was heartbreaking, but also a small ray of hope. And then, to my surprise, my daughter, who had stayed away during the worst of it, came back. She walked through the door one afternoon, eyes wide with shock at what had happened. "Mom, I had no idea," she said softly, pulling me into a long overdue hug. The family I thought I had was breaking apart, but in that breaking, I found pieces of myself I thought were lost. I wasn't just fighting for a house anymore. I was fighting for respect, for truth, and for the family I still believed could be. But the road ahead was uncertain. Could trust be rebuilt, or was this the end of what we once had? Just when I thought I was standing alone against the storm, someone unexpected stepped forward, my late husband's youngest brother, Uncle Asif. A quiet man, always in the background, never one to make waves. But when he heard what was happening, he didn't hesitate. He called one afternoon, his voice steady but urgent. "You don't have to face this by yourself," he said. "I've looked into the estate documents. There's more here than you know." With Uncle Asif's help, I started to piece together missing parts of the puzzle, old deeds, forgotten letters, and witnesses who remembered things the lawyers had overlooked. He became my rock, my confidant, and my guide through the legal maze. But his involvement didn't sit well with the others. Armin's anger flared, Zara's threats grew sharper, and the tension in the house thickened. Still, having Uncle Asif on my side gave me strength I hadn't felt in months. For the first time, I felt like the scales might tip in my favor. Yet even with this unexpected support, I knew the fight was far from over. The family would try everything to break us, and I would have to be stronger than ever. Because this battle wasn't just about property anymore. It was about standing up for myself, for justice, and for the truth. The final confrontation was nothing like I imagined, no shouting matches or dramatic scenes. Instead, it was quiet, cold, and decisive. I called a family meeting: Armin, Zara, their parents, even Rafik the lawyer. Everyone gathered in the living room, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. I stood in the center, holding the secret will, the property deeds, and the evidence Uncle Asif had helped uncover. My voice was steady, though my heart thundered. "I won't be pushed out of my home," I said firmly. "The truth is clear. This house belongs to me by my husband's final wishes and by law." Zara scoffed, but I saw fear flicker in her eyes. Armin looked down, ashamed. I laid out everything: the forged documents, the secret will, the pressure to sign away my rights. I told them how I had fought in silence, how their betrayal hurt more than words could say. "You tried to erase me," I said, "but respect is not something you can take with a signature. It's earned, and I earned it." The room was silent. No one spoke. For the first time, I felt they truly saw me not as an obstacle, but as the woman they had underestimated. Then, with a heavy sigh, Armin spoke. "Mom, I'm sorry. I was blinded. I lost my way. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was a start. I made it clear from now on, no more manipulation, no more lies. We would rebuild this family, but only with respect." And when the meeting ended, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't alone. I was free. After the confrontation, a strange calm settled over my life. It wasn't perfect, and the wounds were still fresh, but I finally felt the heavy chains of betrayal begin to loosen. I started to live for myself again, not for the expectations of my family or anyone else. I traveled just as I had dreamed before all this chaos began. I flew first class to places I'd only seen in magazines, tasting freedom I hadn't felt in years. Each trip was more than a vacation. It was a journey back to myself, rediscovering strength, confidence, and peace I thought I had lost forever. Back home, I began rebuilding relationships, but on my terms. Some old friends returned, offering support and kindness. Some family members kept their distance, but I no longer needed their approval to feel whole. The house, once a battlefield, slowly became a sanctuary again. I filled it with laughter, music, and light reminders that life could still be beautiful, even after pain. One afternoon, my daughter came to me, her eyes full of hesitation. "Mom," she said softly, "I'm sorry for staying away. I want to be part of your life again." Her words were a balm to my heart. Forgiveness wasn't easy, but I knew it was part of healing. I realized that while money and property can be fought over, the real treasure is respect, love, and peace. And finally, I felt free. Looking back now, I see that this battle wasn't just about a house or an inheritance. It was about something far deeper: respect. For years, I believed that money and property defined our family, that wealth was the measure of love and loyalty. But what I learned the hard way is that without respect, none of that means anything. The people I once called family tried to erase me, to silence my voice, to steal not just what I owned but who I was. And in doing so, they lost something far more valuable: my trust and my love. I fought back not because of greed or spite, but because I refused to be forgotten. I refused to let anyone tell me I didn't belong. Today, I live with peace not because I have everything, but because I have what truly matters: dignity, respect, and the courage to stand up for myself. If there's one thing I want anyone listening to take away from my story, it's this: respect matters more than money, and now they know it too.